Spawnable is the premier podcast spotlighting people of color. Every week, we talk news, what we've been playing, and tell you who's invited to the cookout. Our show is all about talking about gaming through a prism of blackness, because we are the culture. Welcome to Brookago, y'all.
What up, everybody here in Brookago? This is the Spawn Me podcast with Kahlief Adams. I'm your host, Kahlief Adams. I hope you're doing well. I hope everybody is chilling in all the places that you reside. We have a fantastic episode rocking with you here in the second episode of May. Who knows what time is at this point? Time is a flat circle. Time is a time. It makes it feel like I'm about to bust out some Kyrie Irving isms for all of y'all at home. Massive love to all of you here at chat, all of you in podcast land, all of you in Twitch land, getting it in for all of us here in Brookago. We got some real dope stuff for you this week. We have some interesting conversations to dig into about games that you are really going to be excited about. If you missed last week's show with Jason Ronald, who's the head of program management at Xbox, you missed a really dope show. You missed a banger of an episode. You missed some really good conversation about not only, the work that Gakhead is doing, but also the work that is happening in the space around backwards compatibility, as FPS boost, and all the things that kind of dig into that space where you're able to kind of learn about, what that console, what the Xbox ecosystem is trying to bring to the table, and why those things are super important to you as a player. I think one of the most fascinating parts about that conversation was really about the ideas around why backwards compatibility is also kind of helping the space keep all the games that we've been thinking about in the space. Like, all the games that we think that we're going to lose, now we have a new way of keeping those games around for everyone for longer periods of time, which is going to be super, super cool to see as a part of the conversation. So I am very excited about that stuff. That's going to be real cool and real dope. So, again, if you are in the conversation, making it happen and all those things are real for you, then I'm saying it's going to be wild to see how all that stuff is going to be, working through all the Xbox ecosystem, xCloud, all those things, which is going to be super, super dope. So I'm having a good day today. Today has been a really good day. I want to take a minute because I think it's always good to level set. I'm tired as hell, though. I'm super beat. But I will say this. One of the things that I always come back to whenever I'm tired is the ability that I get a chance to do this show every week and rock with so many good people in our community that have really great energy. I think when we are thinking about content creation, when we're thinking about all the ways that we are a part of this internet family that we all wind up being a part of, and all are engaging in with social media and the content and all that kind of stuff, you all really don't know how much you lift me up with the words that you put out into the world. There's been some really interesting spaces where, sometimes people are negative about me and towards me and all that kind of stuff, and I let a lot of that stuff slide. But it also is one of those things where I notice often enough that when people are negative towards me or people try to put shade on my name and all that kind of stuff, the internet and the universe punches back real hard with good stuff for me, which I think is brilliant and amazing. And again, it's like, I hope it is a reflection not only of me and the good work that I try to put out in the world, and also try the good vibes I try to put out in the world, but also a reflection of all of you at home, who are a reflection of this community. You are a part of this community. You've made this community grow. You've built this with me and us and everyone who's ever touched this platform in a way that has made it grow. Shout out to Agent of Doom. Massive love to you in the fam, in the chat. I see you. But I want to say that's an important thing. Again, I always want to leave you all, or at least give you some good love about what's happening in the space for us. I want to talk about all the good things that are happening. I believe in karma. I believe that you put out good energy and you wind up getting it back in spades. And I believe that you get to do cool stuff with cool people because that's the energy you want around you. I truly believe that. Our chest in the chat is like, take my energy. I need it because I'm tired. So what that means is, for this show, There isn't a lot of stuff to talk about. We don't have an interview this week. We have some stuff that's coming down the line that I'm very excited about. I am super excited about and hyped about. I'm going to talk about some of that stuff in the next couple of days because some of that stuff is embargoed. Some of those things we can't talk about yet, but some things you should have an expectation for, stuff that's happening very, very soon. Friday, you will see me on the Xbox podcast, not the not the Xcast kind of funny show. I'm talking about the Xbox podcast, the one that is hosted by Major Nelson and Jeff Rubenstein. So I have co-hosted. I'm their first ever co-host on that show. That's going to happen on Friday of this week. So that show will go out on Friday. This next Spawn on Me will go out on Friday. So you'll be able to check that out. So that's going to be wild. Mad people are going to be coming in from the Xbox fam, checking that out. So I'm the first ever co-host on that show. And I love those cats. So like, I've been a big fan of Major Nelson for a long time. If you've been in this space for any form of years or time, you know how integral that man has been to the brand awareness of the Xbox platform. Shout out to Drunken Buddha in the chat, who's been doing big things out here in the Twitch land. Massive love to that cat, who's fantastic. And also, I really just need to go sit in a room with him and like gleam all the dope energy that he has and all the good cooking skills that he has had, because everything he makes on his channel looks so goddamn good. I'm just like, shit, how do you make food that looks good and tastes so good on all this? I'm like, got to figure out a way to make that happen, because we got to do that. We've talked about doing some collab stuff, and we're definitely going to make that happen this year. So give Drunken Buddha, if you're here on Twitch live looking and listening, give that cat a follow, give him massive love. Yeah, we got to put it on the calendar for real. We're not going to insert a Paris joke about cooking because Paris can't cook, so he doesn't even get to be in the conversation. So awesome. What else is happening? If you're a fan of Psychonauts, if you're a fan of the Psychonauts game, you know that there's a Psychonauts 2 coming out very soon. We are in talks to have Tim Schafer back on the show with us. So that's a conversation that we're going to have in June sometime very soon. So think about that. Tim Schafer is going to be rocking with us on Spawn and Me very, very soon. Again, we do dope stuff here. We don't play when it, forget Paris. We don't play when it comes to doing big things here on Spawn on Me. Massive love to the folks over at Insomniac for tweeting out the show today. We are, super appreciative of them, because we're going to be talking a lot about the preview event that I got a chance to go to this week with Ratchet and Clank. Ooh, it is wild, the stuff that they are doing with that game. I finished Returnal. Let's get into it. You know what? It's not going to be a really long show, because we got basically two things to talk about. Basically three things to talk about. We're going to talk about Ratchet and Clank preview stuff. I just came out of a preview for Deathloop today as well that I can't talk about yet, but that will come out on an upcoming show. Finished Returnal, went to the Ratchet and Clank preview, checked out the Deathloop preview, and then I finished Resident Evil 8 this past week, and I want to talk a little bit about that, because I feel like there's a good bunch of things to dig into with that game, which, when we think about what game of the year is going to potentially look like for 2021, it's going to be hard this year to pick the game of the year. And there's still stuff coming down the line very, very soon. So we still have a bunch of stuff to dig into in that respect. So let's get into Ratchet and Clank. So again, huge shout out to the folks over in Insomniac. Huge shout out to the friends over our friends over at PlayStation for bringing us in for that preview. Thirsty Panda in the chat is saying cough forbidden for Horizon Forbidden West. I'm just saying, again, this year is going to be wild if they can get stuff out the door. Again, COVID has been a big problem in terms of course, all the things that COVID has done, but also when it comes to game development, it has been very, very difficult for folks to kind of get their games out the door. If Horizon can still get out, then it's going to be wild too, in terms of those conversations. Also, we're bringing back the Spawnies this year. I just wanted to say that real quick. So we missed the Spawnies in the past couple years. If you're new to Spawn on Me and you're new to Brookago, the Spawnies is our version of the Game of the Year award. Of course, the grand prize, the Game of the Year, is the Cheddar Bay Biscuit. The Cheddar Bay Biscuit Award, because that is our Brookago currency, is the Red Lobster Cheddar Bay Biscuit. So if you're not familiar with that, we have some new cool stuff that's going to be along there, new graphics, new overlays, new transitions, all this cool stuff that's going to be there specifically just for the Game of the Year awards. So if you're thinking about folks who you'd love to see co-host that with me, please let me know on Twitter and shout that stuff out, because I think it'll be fun this year to pull people in for that conversation and see if we can get people to rock with us to do that show this year. I usually do it solo, but now I want to bridge that out, because now I learned some cool things in vMix and I can make that stuff look really pretty. So we want to make sure we're doing that. So Ratchet and Clank was all kind of in this really amazing streamed space. They built out this entire like website that basically, like, you go in and you're kind of moving through the portals that you would kind of move through in the game, which was super cool. And it was a couple of different things that we kind of got a chance to see. One, we got a chance to see, I think it was like maybe 30 to 40 minutes of just straight gameplay. Akira, shout out to you. I see you. We got to see like basically 30 to 40 minutes of like straight gameplay. The thing that you have to understand is, and I'm going to show some of that gameplay here on the stream right now. So if you've gotten a chance to see some of the videos that have gone out today, Paris had a really good one. Other folks, this is probably going to be the same B-roll. But what I want you to understand is, and it's going to be maybe even hard to discern from the stream that you're seeing if you're watching us directly on Twitch, is the version we saw during the play session looked phenomenal. It looked gorgeous. It looked beautiful. It looked unreasonably good in a way that you don't expect for even a thing that's working through a stream. So like, again, you understand that like usually quality goes down a little bit when you get stuff through a stream as opposed to like raw gameplay video, right? So the gameplay video you're going to see on Twitch tonight may not necessarily even be as crispy as the stuff that we got a chance to see there. But I want you to take a look at this, because what I think happens here is that you really just don't get an understanding of how good Insomniac is at what they do until you can really look at this stuff with a fine and kind of go through it with a fine-tooth comb, because there are so many things that are happening on the screen. And a lot of the conversation that wound up happening was we had our play session, and we had some breakout sessions where we got a chance to see these different conversations around what, you know, the art style was going to wind up being, and how that kind of came to be, you know, how they use the power of the PS5 to kind of boost the game and showcase it in its most beautiful way. You know, we got a chance to hear from the composer, who was super dope, and he was fantastic. I loved him. He had this really good energy. It was really cool. So Ratchet just looks wild. It looks super good. It is one of the prettiest games I've seen in a very long time. And when I say pretty, I don't just mean pretty in their ways that you think of like, well, the graphics look great and all that stuff looks really nice up against the, you know, the backgrounds and all that kind of stuff. The levels of detail that they went into to get this game to look as gorgeous as it does is pretty astounding. Like, I think we don't really understand just how this is going to look if you bought a new TV. Like, if you're one of those people who copped a new TV and you're like, yo, I got this joint just for, you know, next level gaming, next gen gaming, this is going to be the kind of showpiece game that when you're like, hey, I just got a PS5, or I have a PS5, and you have that person that doesn't have one, and they're like, show me what the good thing is. Like, show me the thing that makes it dope. What's the thing that makes it look cool as opposed to everything else that I've seen before in the video game space? This is the game that you're going to pull out and start to play in front of them, and they're going to lose their minds, because the stuff that they've done in this game in terms of the visuals, in terms of the lighting, in terms of the particle effects, in terms of the amount of stuff you see on screen, like the stuff that they're rendering right now is just, it's so like, and it's not even just in the cutscenes. Like the way the cutscenes look it looks good, but the cutscenes, when they move from that space into the actual gameplay, you literally can't tell the difference. Like there is no degradation. There is no change in quality. There is no like, oh, well, this looks good here and it doesn't look good there. Like it just looks good everywhere. It looks good to the point where you're like, this is the way games are supposed to look for next gen. Like, you know, small things of just like, again, particle effects and stuff that's moving around. So like currently we're watching, and again, if you're listening to this in audio format, I'm going to kind of explain it. Ratchet is kind of on this runaway coaster right now. And it winds up showing basically all these things that are in the background that are, you know, rendered for the effect of the game. It's you're flying around this huge city and you're fighting enemies, and you're changing out your weapons and you're swapping them out on the fly, and you're moving through the spaces that are all running in pretty much 4K all the time. Like it's running at 4K. I think they talked about it in one of their fact sheets that they said stunning visuals, enjoy dazzling adventure fueled by mind-blowing speed and immersive features of the PS5 console, with an optional performance mode targeting 60 frames per second. Enhanced lighting and ray tracing rendering renders incredible in-game worlds and displays in a crisp dynamic 4K and HDR. Here's the thing, is when you see that stuff in that way, it changes the way you think about what this game looks like. And what I mean by that is like, here's a quick scene, right? Where right now, you know, there's a scene of of Clank talking to the newest character that's in the game. And you can see small things in this scene. The fur effects, there's a lighting that's translucent through the sheet, through the spaceship that you see on the screen. All that stuff adds to this weird and amazing layer of stuff you just didn't understand could be real before. Like the way glass reflects on this stuff, how big the levels are, how everything moves with a feeling of just like smooth as hell. You know, the way that the graphics look in terms of the enemies, when you wind up hitting an enemy, you know, enemies before they die, they have this like kind of really dope animation where they look like they just got hurt. So it's like, you know they're about to die, and they just like have this animation that just shows all that stuff off. Again, it's like the scale of the game in which they're trying to hit just is different. Light looks different. Everything is just super vibrant and beautiful and big and bold. And I am infinitely excited for this game in a way that I was hyped for this game before because I knew that Insomniac just puts out bangers all the time. But I think that the thing that they do with games like this is that these are the showcase pieces that make you want to buy a game, but also makes you want to talk about a game with other people. And when you wind up getting games like that, it winds up doing this thing where you wind up showcasing and showing off, games that wind up being, the stuff that you feel like you want to tell everybody about. And and then you kind of get into the space where you get a chance to play it. Like I was hyped just to see the conversations happen, and really was hyped to get into the preview because I was like, I just want to see what this thing is going to wind up looking like. But then when I got a chance to see and hear all the little features of stuff, right, of just like, the way they use the adaptive controllers, right? So you get a chance to do the half pull, will let you kind of have one shooting effect, and then if you have a full pull of the controller, that changes the way that the shooting works. Being able to hear all the enemies kind of talk about weapons that you're using against them is super wild. Like getting a chance to see, we're seeing right now this topiary gun where basically the game, you shoot out a ball of energy that winds up turning enemies into plants. But you do that in conjunction with other weapons, and it winds up, giving you this arsenal that you can continue to do so many different things at the same time while all these particles are happening on the screen, while all these bolts are popping out of everywhere. it's almost a little bit overwhelming because it's like so much stuff on screen at the same time for your eyes to really pull in. But this game is going to be the most eye candy game I think we're going to see in a long time until something like Horizon drops in that way. I am astounded at the amount of detail they are able to get into this game in some of the stuff that they showed. And again, it gives us this amount of love to the folks over at Insomniac, because I just don't know how you get to this point where the stuff looks this way. Like, it looks like a cartoon. It looks better than a cartoon in the way that you think of ways that cartoons look right now. Like, it's in this in-between space where it's like, you know, potentially, you know, Pixar is kind of the pinnacle of stuff. This is like a 0.2 notch beneath that, which is nuts. And it's moving pretty much at 60 frames per second at 4K with a dope story, with cool enemies, with all this stuff that's happening at once. And I'm not gonna front. Like, you know, we talk about the power of the PS5 and what they're trying to do from a you know, hard drive perspective and power perspective, and a lot of the conversations they talked about, you know, when you saw the kind of pulling the rift, you know, pulling yourself through a rift, and it basically is loading an entire level. That's right, I said that. It's loading an entire level basically instantly. So you don't even see any transition between you and you go through a portal to go see a new level. You just don't see it. It's happening so fast that you don't see when that thing switches. And that's happening in levels and outside of levels. So there's like the level portals that are in one where you're moving around the space, which is what most people are seeing right now if you're watching the Twitch version. And then there are these other portals that you wind up going through that basically are just pulling you through an entirely new level that is generated on the fly, in game, no cut. None of that stuff is happening. It is no load. You just pull the thing and you run through the portal, and then you just go. And you get a whole entire level that is rendered in its fullest capacity and resolution in the same way that the main world that you were already in was doing before you went through that portal. It is wild what they're going to be able to do in this game. I am so excited to see and hear when people get a chance to play this, especially because it's going to be even harder. Like, the thing that's the blessing and the curse of the PS5 shortage right now is the fact that, like, you know, a lot of people don't have PS5s. It is hard to get a PS5 right now. And to a certain extent, like, the cool thing is that people now get a chance to kind of wait a little bit more to kind of see, you know, what's going to be out there in the world, what's going to be in the space for people to actually play and that kind of stuff. I know it's not, you know, solace to most people who are like, I got no PS5 yet, so shut the hell up. I understand that. That's reasonable. But you get a chance now to kind of look at the way that the games are coming out and seeing, when you have first party titles like this, who are the folks who are really digging in and finding ways to really, you know, like pull the good juice out of a console. And this is early stuff. This is, you know, consoles, you know, traditionally get better in terms of gameplay and, you know, optimizations and finding out ways to tweak, you know, the gameplay and stuff after it's been towards like the middle and end of the cycle, right? And we're literally in, you know, half of a year of these things being out, and things are looking like this right now. Imagine what God of War is going to look like when we start to see stuff from that studio. Imagine what this stuff is going to look like, because again, they've had dev kits forever at this point. It's also kind of one of those things where you're just like, I'm hoping to see, you know, what winds up being done in the case if they get a chance to do multiple games in a generation, right? Like, sometimes it winds up kind of sucking if you get your game out early, because you're wind up doing that stuff. So like, even this character right here in the screen right now, what we're showing is this big giant robot. Again, fully rendered, like on the screen. It's in a cutscene and all that stuff, but it's in the shot. I'm kind of waiting because there's going to be a moment that you're going to be able to see that looks really nuts right now. And here it goes right about here. So he starts to grind this rail, and then you go to this segment where you're flying through and around this giant robot that is doing destruction, is breaking things around you while you rail run around it. And it pops itself in and out of the scene because it breaks things, and it kind of looks in to kind of shoot you. This is all happening in game. None of this stuff is like a weird cutscene. This isn't a QTE. This isn't a thing where you're just like, oh, so I got to hit a button to do that thing. Like, no, this is all happening real time. It looks wild how cool this stuff is. I was sitting at my desk watching this and freaking the hell out because I was like, where are we going to be in 2 years? If we're seeing this level of fidelity and this kind of beautiful, graphics and art style and destruction and all that kind of stuff, what is this going to look like in 2 years? What's it going to look like in 4 years? We're going to be in a space where we are not going to know what to do with any of this stuff. The swing shot looks wild. It's all nuts. Like, it all looks amazing. And then the sound is so good. The sound is fantastic. Like, the way this stuff sounds is so good. I know I'm gloating and all that stuff, but I really do believe that, like, we live in such fantastic times as gamers, man. Like, we are in this joint right here where he's flying behind the robot and he lands on the robot and grinds the robot's shoulder. Wild stuff right now. Like, we're seeing stuff that we just like didn't expect to see in games like this before. Like, this is stuff that, again, I think a lot of people are going to kind of poo-poo it a little bit, but like, it's going to be something that we're going to take for granted at a point because it's going to just look so good. It's going to be something where we're just going to be like, well, that's just the way things look. And this is the stuff that we talked about, when we first were thinking about games and how the future was going to look for some of that kind of stuff. They talked about some other aspects of the game as well that I think are really interesting that I want to talk about. One, and I'm going to answer a question from Ad Moore really quickly because I think that there's a good question in there about any chance if the DualSense adaptive trigger feedback evolve with the weapons as they upgrade and change in how they act. So that's a great question, and the answer to that is yes. So each weapon will feel a little bit different when you're shooting it because of the way the DualSense will kind of give you that feedback. And I thought that was brilliant in the way that they talked about it. I think it's going to be something where, at a certain point when you're playing the game, you'll swap to a weapon and your touch sense will kind of just feel that stuff already. You're like, all right, I'm shooting the shotgun. Oh, I'm shooting the topiary gun. Oh, I'm shooting the lightning gun. And you'll feel that stuff. Like they talked about feeling the, for weapons that have like a charge mechanism to it, of feeling the charge through the adaptive triggers and feeling that burst of energy once you shot it out. Again, like I'm just so excited for stuff like this. This is the reason why, when I talk about what the ace in the hole is for the PS5, it's all about the controller. Like, I think, there's going to be folks who are going to, actually use the power of the HD SSD, I should say, in good ways and kind of figure out ways to kind of, get the best bang for the buck out of that stuff. I think that's definitely going to be in there for sure. It's going to be really cool to be able to do that. I think that the things that we're going to see are going to be subtle at first, right? You're not going to really understand it. And I think it's going to be on developers to really bring that thing home when they're talking about and previewing their games, and then talking about it when they're kind of showing it off, to say, here's what we tried to do with the DualSense, and here's what you should have an expectation to feel. Because a lot of this generation is going to be about feeling physical sensations through the controller on the PlayStation platform. And even on the Xbox platform with the way that their Rumble works too. Like, I think it's going to be one of those things where you're going to feel a lot of small, intricate kind of details that go along with some of that stuff. And it's going to be pretty cool. Pink Dragon asks, will we feel the difference in the surfaces that you grind on? I don't know. That one I didn't get a chance to ask. I don't know if that will feel that different. I feel like you probably will. So like On the grinding sections where you have those parts, I think that there may be a feel there. And I think when you're doing the kind of wall run stuff, those may feel different. Or at least I know those things are going to sound different coming out of the speaker on the DualSense. Like I know that stuff's going to be a thing because that's been a thing that's been happening often already when it comes to the DualSense and what they've been trying to do. A couple other things that I thought were really interesting was, again, them trying to hit this 4K 60, them doing that in the performance mode, I think is brilliant and bringing that out because it's still going to look super pretty. I think you may lose a little ray tracing stuff in there, but I think in this game, it 4K, 45, I think was the number that they talked about or something to that effect, I think. Or maybe that might have been Resident Evil. But even if it's like 4K 30, the 4K 30 is going to look gorgeous. Like they talked about small things of like Clank's skin or his metal, of how they made sure when they did the ray tracing reflections that it didn't just reflect the way you think of like a mirror reflecting of a thing. Because of the way that his metal is constructed, it would stretch out the reflections. So they made sure that the reflections were stretched out in the ray tracing effect that they put on Clank. Like small details of stuff like that to make sure that the feel is, consistent across what you would have an expectation to see in real life. Like those things are kind of cool to be able to see that that's a thing. Something else I thought was really interesting was they have these kind of special modes. There's also like a, I think, I don't want to missay this because I want to make sure that that's right. Let me see if I can find it. I'll have to see if I can go back and find it. I do know that there is like you'll find armor in the game when you go through those kind of dimensional rifts that are the new loads into the new levels. They're kind of like side levels. You can find special bolts and you can find armor pieces, and those armor pieces then have stats that kind of go across them. So there'll be now like you don't have to wear them, but if you own it, if you found it, you'll get these perks that kind of work towards your advantage in game, which I thought was really, really brilliant. And there were a couple other modes that were in there too. I was really excited about the photo mode because you know how much I love photo mode. That thing looks beautiful and nuts. You're going to be mad at me at how many pictures I'm going to wind up taking and putting on Twitter when that game comes out. It's going to look stupid and it's going to be wild as dope as F. It's going to look so freaking dope. It's going to look like, stuff like this is just going to look super wild. It's just going to look so pretty in the way that all of these things are going to kind of come to the space. It's going to just be some of the coolest stuff that I've seen in a game coming from one of the best developers on the planet. Like, the game already has a lot of style. It has a lot of fun, kind of tongue-in-cheek stuff. They talked a little bit about, why the lighting and everything is so important to the game and how that lighting evokes different parts of the kind of story and why that stuff matters. Like, again, looking at screenshots like this, on a PS5, like what is happening? Like we're in such a good space, man. Like I know people beef and complain about stuff, but like, looking at stuff like this is wild. Like it just looks so good. Like the fur physics and the fur way it looks, like even just small things of just like reflections. And again, like you'll see it in Clank right there of just how it looks. You can see the reflection of, God, why can't I think of her name right now? Of the new character's ears in Clank's face. Like if you really kind of dig into that thing and look at that, it looks what Rivet. Thank you, everybody. Rivet. If you look at Rivet, you can see the reflection of Rivet's ear in Clank's head because of the ray tracing stuff in there. Pink Dragon asks, do I know how long the game is? No, that I don't know. Because that game is just going to be long anyway because of multiple reasons why it's going to be long. It's just going to be a pretty well-rounded game in terms of, length and all that kind of stuff. Admore asks, on top of my previous question, about the weapons. I wonder if those features in the controller will change when you level up your weapons. Which one is the key pillar of, yeah. I think that there'll probably be some differences in the way that some of that stuff fires and some of the way that that stuff kind of feels. It just makes sense from the way that it winds up working. I'll try to get confirmation on that stuff from folks when I get a chance to talk to them. We're hoping that we're going to have them on the show at some point, post launch, to see if we can get them to come on the show and talk to us about Ratchet, because I am over the moon excited about what this game is going to be for not only the technological leap that we see because of what they're doing. It'll give us an idea of what other teams will be able to do if given the time and the energy to be able to do that kind of stuff. But I'm just hyped for, a new game like this coming back that's, super easy to pick up. You don't have to think really hard. And you're just going to have a fun time with it. It's going to be a thing. Like, games like this aren't stuff that people get on the internet and be like, I hate that game. Like, people don't do that. Not for a Ratchet and Clank game. Like, people don't do that beef. Like, they'll beef about other stuff, but if they're really beefing about, like, Ratchet and Clank is terrible, like, those are people who just don't have time or sense. Like, you can't really think about those people in the conversation. They're just doing that stuff just to be jerks in that way. And it doesn't make any sense. It's so stupid. It's so dumb. So yeah, that was the Ratchet and Clank info. Again, if you have questions, please hit me up on Twitter. Please check out other people's stuff, because there's been a lot of good videos and things out there. This is definitely going to already, like, I haven't even touched it, and I know it's going to be in my game of the year consideration. It's just for the technological bits alone, it's going to probably win some awards for, best looking game or any of that kind of stuff. And trying to figure out ways to get, those folks on the show to talk about this stuff is going to be super dope. So we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to get some water because I'm parched. And then we'll be right back, and we're going to talk about Resident Evil. We're going to do our Resident Evil review. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some cool stuff that's happening with Spawn and Me and Hitman at the end of the show. So we'll be right back. We'll see you in about a minute and a half. Much love. Peace.
Hey, Brookago. Merritt K here from Fanbyte. Did you know that Spot on Me is a part of the Fanbyte podcast network? We produce a ton of other great shows like Channel F, a podcast where we talk about the games we're playing.
Can I just say how much I would love for there to be a Hitman game that's just about making people experience embarrassing social faux pas, trying to like prank people and make it seem like they had farted or like tripped on something? That would be like very good.
Dig up weird finds at thrift stores.
So the listing says Bung Doctor V64.
And take your questions about the best jokers.
Labars Martin asks, what's the best or coolest weapon ever given to a mech?
Gundam Fusion Rebake has a really good...
Oh, wait, give me that one more time.
Gundam Fusion Rebake.
Yo, I heard you. Gundam Fusion.
I personally guarantee that listening to Channel F will make you a better, smarter, more powerful version of yourself. So go to fanbyte.com/podcasts or search for Channel F on your podcast app of choice today. Improvement not guaranteed. Listening to Channel F may cause jokeification.
Welcome back to the Spawn on Me podcast. I'm your host, Kahlief Adams. I hope you're all doing well. If you missed the first half of our show, you missed a wonderful conversation around the Ratchet and Clank preview event that I went to a little bit earlier in the week. I am extremely hyped about that game, and you should be too if you are a fan of Insomniac games and all the work that they do. One of the big things I got a chance to play this past week, and I'm really high on it as a big horror fan, is that whole Resident Evil game that came out a couple of days ago. I love Resident Evil. Resident Evil is one of my favorite things on the planet. I am a huge Resident Evil fan from way back in the day. And shout out to the folks from Capcom for hooking us up with a code and getting us some review code to be able to check out the game a little bit early and dig through it. And I have to say, I am a big critic of a lot of stuff. In terms of like, horror games have to hit a certain level of fidelity. It has to hit a certain level of scary. It has to hit a whole level of, all the parts of horror that really hit really well. Because I'm such a big horror fan, they all have to really line up to get me excited about a game or get me hyped about a thing or after I finished it or consumed it, then I'm just like talking about it and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of horror doesn't do that for me anymore. Like, it's just not there in the same ways that we used to see them in. And that sucks. I wish that was not the case. There's just not a lot of great horror out there in that same way. Resident Evil 5 is a fantastic, Resident Evil 8 is a fantastic video game. Resident Evil Village is a fantastic Resident Evil game. It is now probably, if I'm being honest, my new favorite Resident Evil game. We're going to show off some of the game from the stream that I did a couple of days ago. So I'm going to give folks in Twitch chat a chance to dip out. If you're still not trying to see any of the game, if you still want to go into it without seeing anything, you have 30 seconds to turn off the stream. So before I show video game stuff, this is just directly from my gameplay time with it when I was streaming it the other day. So if you saw that, you probably saw the stuff already. If not, this is some gameplay stuff from what I was able to play the other day. So I love everything about this game. It is one of those things where you just don't recognize how hard it is to bring a game like this into existence, because of, you're always trying to chase the hype of the game that you had before. I think you're always trying to figure out good ways to double down on the things that you did really well, while also trying to figure out good ways to put new stuff in the game that feels fresh, that feels new, that feels different in ways that you just didn't get a chance to kind of do before. Resident Evil 8 has the worst protagonist, but some of the best and coolest villains in a game. Like Ethan Winters, is it Ethan Winters? I can't think of his name right now. I'm so tired. Ethan Winters. Yeah, Ethan Winters. Yes, that's it. Is one of the worst characters I've ever played in a game. He's stupid. He's an idiot. He's a dummy. Like, I don't like him as a character. I think he's really bad as a character. But what he goes through is some of the wildest stuff I've ever seen a character go through in any video game in my life. Ethan Winters needs a whole Wikipedia about his hands. He gets his hands beat the hell up in such a way throughout this entire game. Like, this game gives no fucks about this man's hands. This game gives no fucks about this man's body. Like, this is the perfect I hate this one man game. Like, he gets rocked in so many different ways all the time. And it's so bugged out because it's just like, what else can you do to this man's hands that you like? It's like Saw, but just for his hands. Like, it's the movie Saw, but just for that man's hands. And it's wild because he just gets up and he's like, I'm trying to find my wife. That's all I care about. F my hands. It just makes me laugh so much because the game doesn't give you an explanation in the beginning to say like, oh, okay, well, here's a potential reason why Ethan is getting beat up like this. Doesn't give you a lot of conversation points about like if there's a reason behind any of that stuff. He just gets fucked up for like 30 hours. There's nothing you can do but pour some Robitussin on it. It's the wildest thing. It's like, yo, this man has like the best, like, I don't even know what to say. It's just a wild thing to see as a touch point of a game where you're fighting supernatural beings, and of all the things that they can target on your body, like, yeah, I'm sure one of these monsters, I'm sure Lady D could probably rip your head off. She's a 9-foot woman who's a vampire, and she could probably just pick you up and snap your neck. But she's like, nah, I'm gonna punch you in the hands. I will stab you in the hands with my nails. Oh, there's one other thing that you want to do? No, I'm gonna punch you in the hand I'm gonna punch you over here in the hands too. Like, it's just so much stuff that happens to this man's hands. It just makes me laugh so much because of the way that the game just literally gives no L's. I mean, gives no F's about this man. But he takes so many L's during the game to try to save his wife and his baby. What I really do appreciate, there's a couple of things that I think are paramount in terms of the conversation about this. Story, 9 out of 10. I think the story was pretty damn great. I thought it was fantastic. I love the way the psychological parts of this game work. I think they did a really fantastic job of trying to not only build up these other characters, which I think are better than Ethan. Like, I think the characters around Ethan are really interesting. Do I think he is interesting? I think he's a boring character. But the daughters were interesting, even though I'm sad that they didn't really give them a lot of love. Lady D was actually kind of cool, but also they didn't give her as much love as I would have hoped after having built her up so much in the press going into it, into most of the promotion around the game. The biggest winners in this game were the environmental artists. They are 75 out of 10. Like, every small detail of this game was accounted for in ways that you have to give them massive amounts of respect. I played this on my PC at full 50 something by 1440 something. Like, I played it at the highest resolution that I could possibly play it. I have a 49-inch monitor, widescreen monitor, so whatever the biggest resolution you can get on that, you know, I was playing at that and having it super wide and playing it on basically maxed out graphics. It was a visual delight. It was something where everything spoke to the care that the team took to give you that visual splendor in a way that you just really appreciate. Lighting was gorgeous and beautiful. You kind of start off in the town and move towards the castle, which is like the initial part where you find Lady D and her sisters and all that kind of stuff. But I think the game really opens up in terms of the visuals is when you get out of the castle and go into other parts of the town, because the time of day changes and you get the god rays coming through the trees. There was a bunch of pictures I put out on Twitter the other day, and it just really showcased all the way that they used lighting to build atmosphere in this game that was really, really well done. And it's so many subtle things that worked really well, of just like RTX lighting and reflections and all that kind of stuff. And again, like one of the things we talked about before was the high level shadows in the game, where you see a monster walking around a corner and you're like, oh, that thing is around the corner. Like, it's not just about the shiny bits. It's about the shadows and about how all that atmosphere leans into the way the game feels. Loved the kind of boss fights in the game. The boss fights were super good. This game isn't hard. Like, this game is not a hard game. It's a nice come down game after playing something like Returnal, where the Returnal was just, beating the hell out of you. This game isn't hard, but it's challenging because of, again, resource management and things like that. Like, those things are always going to be a part of the equation for what a game like this is supposed to kind of give you in terms of ways that it wants to kind of mess with you. And there were some great moments in this game. Like, I can't go into them because it's still a little bit too early for spoilers. But there is a moment in this game that is probably one of my favorite gaming moments that I've had in a long time. And when I say that, I mean like favorite in terms of like, as a big horror fan, there are certain things that you remember in movies and things like that, where you're just like, the time when the guy turns into the devil in Event Horizon, or the first time you see the alien in Aliens, or the first time you see Jigsaw in Saw, you hear that, you know, you want to play a game, like that kind of stuff. Like those are those moments in horror movies and genres of stuff that are classics now. Those are things that you think of when you think of those games in those way, or you think of those movies in those way, those pieces of content. There is a moment in this game that is absolutely a top horror moment. It is like, this game isn't scary, it's gross. And I think there's a difference in there. Like, there are some good jump scares in the game, which I think are really cool. But this game does gross really well. It does gross in terms of the audio. It does gross in terms of the graphics. It does gross in terms of the pacing and the timing of stuff. It does all of that really, really well. And I think that is what makes this game so fantastic. And I agree. Akira says horror doesn't have to be graphic. True. Like I talked about this on the stream of like, my favorite horror is graphic horror. Like I love super gory games. I love super gory movies. I love that kind of stuff. This game didn't do gore, but it did gross really well, if that makes a lot of sense, which I think is a pretty interesting way to do it. Like I think, you know, Kojima did some of that stuff in Death Stranding with, you know, stuff feels icky. There are other games that do that, like Silent Hill does gross really, really well. And this game is at one of the high top echelon games of gross when it comes to some of that stuff. I think that stuff is amazingly well done. Like I think it takes a lot to nail that, and Capcom nailed that stuff in a real way that felt really cool. Weapons and stuff felt interesting. Again, you don't really get a lot of stuff to play with in that way. You get some cool stuff to dig around with. There's some upgrades and things like that. The Duke, who is your new "what are you buying" guy, he is also super cool in the game as a kind of respite where you usually go find a save point. I liked him a lot because he even references the "what are you buying" guy a little bit, which I thought was super cool and kind of fun in that respect there. And I just love the fact that they went for it in this game. Like they decided that they were going to build an ensemble cast and kind of use that to be the thing that kind of pushes you forward. The conversations around other characters that are coming back into this game, I thought were really well done. And open that stuff up. Gunplay felt really good within the game as well. Like, you know, a hard thing to do for a Capcom game like this is to get the shooting right, and I feel like they got a good space in there to kind of get it in a proper shooter, first person kind of shooting space. It could have been tighter. It could have been a little bit different. It could have been a little bit more clean, especially with enemies that dodge you a lot. So some of that stuff could have been in there for sure, and kind of, you know, figured that stuff out. I think those things are actually pretty well done. But again, it's like, you know, for a game like this to exist and to expand itself out in those ways, I think it did a really good job. I think it did a fairly good job in terms of that stuff. Kaz says, only problem with the weapons was the DualSense triggers haptics, in my opinion. Yeah, like, I think the blessing and the curse of the DualSense triggers are going to be, there's going to be games that do it really, really well, and there's going to be games that do it really bad, and you just have to turn it off. Like, I didn't use the haptics, DualSense haptics in that way for Returnal, because I just it felt like it was slowing me down in a way that I didn't need it to. It's the reason why I didn't do it or put it into any, you know, when I'm playing first person shooters like Call of Duty. I don't need that in a Call of Duty game. That's just it's gonna get me killed even faster than I'm usually getting killed. So that stuff doesn't make any difference. Doesn't make any sense. And I think the puzzles were really good. Those were really well done. I think those were smart and fun. Enemies were really interesting. I thought that they did a good job of giving you enemy variety between the lichens and then other stuff that you wind up having a little bit later in the game. And it felt like the story that wrapped around what this winds up happening and the way they kind of conclude it was really satisfying. I thought it was really good. Like, I felt like for a Resident Evil game that can be convoluted in a world that is very convoluted in the way it likes to tell its stories, it felt like they wrapped everything up in a pretty nice bow for this particular part of the story arc of what this thing is all going to wind up being. So I came away with it like really happy with what I got a chance to play. I was really excited going into it. It was a thing I was waiting for a long time. And I feel like they nailed it. I feel like they really brought it home in a good way, where you took a really boring protagonist but surrounded him with really great set pieces and fun enemies to fight and really interesting and cool bosses to look at. But all of that wrapped around this space that was just fucking gorgeous to look at. Like, anytime you would be in a space where there was mist or sunlight or any of that kind of stuff, they nailed what that stuff looked like and nailed the way that it felt and nailed the tone of it in a way that was really cool. And it feels like, you know, the RE engine again just showcases itself every time as being one of the dopest looking engines that you can make a game in. And man, like, I go back to that game, and I'm probably going to go through it again just to kind of like fill out some stuff. And see where I missed some things, because I think that's always a fun part of going back to a game like this, is you kind of leave it alone for a little bit. You give it some space to kind of like marinate, and you have your time with it, and you go back in and you dig back in, and you're like, where did I miss, or what are the things that I didn't get a chance to see, or, you know, how can I tackle that thing a little bit better or faster? How can I upgrade these weapons and do some of that kind of stuff? And it was brilliant, man. Like, it was so much fun. I love this game. This game is so good. This is my favorite Resident Evil game now. It used to be 7, because I love the way they kind of handle a lot of stuff. I thought the family was really creepy and dope. This one is definitely my new favorite. And there are characters in this game that I liked a lot, in terms of the bad guys, that I thought were really interesting and super cool. Like, they had swag, which was nuts, because there was a lot of characters in Resident Evil games don't have swag. And in 8 they had swag. And I was like, oh, that's dope. I like that. That's kind of cool that they have some swag to them, which is fun. So again, Resident Evil 8, I think that's an absolute cop. I think it's something you definitely got to take, and you definitely got to go snag. I think it's worth it in every form or fashion. I think it is a fantastic story, fantastic gameplay. You know, Reach for the Moon engine is what they call it, from Akira in the chat. And they did. They continue to reach for the moon, and they keep hitting it. They keep grabbing it. It is a really gorgeous game. So go check that joint out. I don't think we're gonna do a like YouTube video or a review of that. I think this is our review of it. For now, that will be passing back to PR, so they get a chance to look at it. But I'm very pleased with what I got a chance to play. Last couple of things before we get up out of here, and actually I'm actually kind of tired, so we may not do the post show tonight. And I gotta go get some food, and I gotta wash my butt. I am playing Biomutant right now, and I can't talk about it, but I will be able to talk about it soon. So get ready for those conversations very, very soon. And there's a couple of other things that are happening in the next couple of days, and next couple of weeks and stuff. One of those cool things is that if you are a Hitman 3 fan, we are going to be having some featured contracts in the Season of Pride that is happening from May 10th to June 13th. So May 20th, load up your Hitman 3, jump into that game, and you're going to see your boys in Hitman 3. Holy crap. What is happening? Yo, son. What is good? We are going to be in freaking Hitman 3. Holy shit. That's wild. Thank you, Merriman, for picking up a Brookago tank top. Mad love to you. bit.ly/gear if you want to get more cool stuff in terms of clothes from us. So very excited to be working with the folks over at IO Interactive. I'm going to be basically making those contracts this weekend, so we can get those things together and push those out for the 20th. So I'm going to be working on that this weekend, so we can get that information out to them so they can put it in the game. And then Friday we're going to be doing something very cool with our friends over at Feminist Frequency, the crew over there from Anita Sarkeesian. Their 12th annual birthday, their 12th birthday is coming up on this Friday, May 21st. So I'm sorry, on May 21st is when it's going to happen. Sorry. 1 p.m. Pacific is when it kicks off. We'll be in the 2 p.m. slot, 2 to 4, rocking with them on twitch.tv/femfreak. So we'll be hanging out with them, streaming some games. I don't know what I'm going to play yet. It might be some, I don't know. I don't know what to play yet because there's so many things to play, but I just don't know what to play yet. I'll figure it out before then. It may be a little bit of Fuser mixed with something else, so we'll see. Get some Jimmy Cans back on the stream. Jimmy Cans, Jimmy, yeah, so maybe Jimmy up in the stream, so we'll see how that plays itself out. So yeah, we'll see what that looks like. You know, it's always cool to be able to, you know, get back to playing that kind of stuff and digging into doing some streams for some amazing folks like our friends over at FemFreak. Been a big fan of them for a long time, so I'm gonna be doing some cool stuff with them in the next couple weeks. And then we'll see. I think there's gonna be a lot of interesting things coming up. Of course, E3 is right around the corner now. I'm hoping that we're going to be able to stream some cool stuff, you know, with other people during E3. Maybe I get to host another thing, any of that kind of stuff. That's always going to be in the space. I'm rocking with that. Again, go check out the Xbox cast popping up on Friday. I will be a co-host with Major Nelson and Jeff Rubenstein over there. So that's going to be wild and super cool to be able to do that kind of stuff. And yeah, there are some things that I did today that I can't talk about yet because they are just wild. And I wish I could say something, but I can't. And I don't even know if I'll ever be able to say anything, but it was one of the coolest things I ever got the chance to do in my life. It may wind up manifesting itself later on in the year. We'll see. But it was very, very cool. And yeah, I think that's it for this episode. Again, thank you for everyone who has come by tonight. We want to get more folks in the streams more often. We're also going to be doing a thing with our friends again over at Ahead Money. There's going to be on the 20th a 4-hour stream that's going to be hosted here, hopefully on the front page of Twitch with our friends from Ahead Money. Again, we're going to be talking about financial education and literacy again. If you remember our last stream that we did with them, we had all the NBA, we had NFL stars playing games. We had a NBA 2K tournament. We had, some dope musical acts and all that kind of stuff. We're going to be doing another one of those on the 20th from 6 to 6 to 10 p.m. Eastern or 3 to 6 Pacific here on Spawn on Me. So we're going to be doing some more cool, social activism stuff in the vein of trying to get people smarter about how they spend money, how they invest, how they do all that kind of stuff, how they save money and all those kinds of things. So lots of cool things coming in. So for everybody here in Spawn on Me land on Twitch, we'll see you all next week. Everybody here in podcast land, we'll see you all as well next week. Massive love to you all. We hope that you're all going to be very, 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 very well. Get yourself vaccinated. Please go get your shots. Make sure you're doing all that kind of cool stuff. And then we'll see you here next week for another episode of Spawn on Me. We'll do an actual Fabletics stream where I'll show you all the stuff and show it all off probably in the next day or two. I'm just beat today. I can't do it. I'm sweepy. Wash your hands, wash your butt. We'll see you all next week. Much love and peace.